Tropes Media browse popular forums videos. Join login. Tropes Media browse popular indexes forums videos. Ask the Tropers. Trope Finder Media Finder Trope Launchpad Tech Wishlist Reviews Tools. Cut List Image Fixer New Edits New Articles Edit Reasons Launches Images List Crowner Activity Untyped Pages Recent Page Type Changes Changelog. Tips: Creating new redirects. Cross-wicking tips for editing. Text formatting rules. Glossary. Edit reasons. Handling spoilers. Wordcraft Administrivia. FAQ. Tropes HQ. About Us. Contact Us. DMCA Notice. Privacy Policy Report. Bug. Go ad-free. Changelog. Show spoilers. Night vision. Sticky header. Highlight links. Follow TV tropes. Edit page. Related. History. Ad review. Discussion more. To do. Page source. You need to log in to do this. Get known if you don't have an account. http://tvtropes.org/pmwiki/pmwiki.php/film/smile2. Following. Film. Smile2. Go to. Edit page. Related. History. Ad review. Discussion. To do. Page source. Film. Characters. Fridge. Head scratchers. Laconic. Nightmare fuel. Trivia. WMG. YMMV. Create subpage. Create new. Analysis archive. Awesome derivative work. Fanworks Fanficari CS Funny Haiku Heartwarming Image Links Image Source Media Notes Newsletter Playing with Quote Source Quotes Recap Referenced by Shocking Tearjerker Timeline. Spoilers for Smile, 2022, will remain unmarked. You have been warned. Fear is spreading. Might be a tragedy. Devastation right in front of me. Am I a future disaster that's waiting to happen? That's waiting to happen? Like blood on white. Sky Riley. Smile 2 is a 2024 supernatural psychological horror film and the sequel to 2022's Smile. It is once again directed and written by Parker Finn and stars Naomi Scott, Lucas Gage, and Rosemary DeWitt. Kyle Gallner reprises his role as Joel from the first film. Sky Riley, Scott, is an international pop sensation, ready to launch her new world tour. But after witnessing the horrific suicide of her friend Lewis, smiling ear to ear, she gets entangled in increasingly terrifying and inexplicable events. Completely engulfed by the escalating horrors surrounding her and the pressure of fame, she's forced to confront her dark past to regain control of her life before it spirals out of control. The film was released to theaters on October 18, 2024. Previews, teaser, trailer. Smile 2 contains examples of the following. 20 minutes into the past, the film is set in 2022, just 2 weeks after the end of the first one. Actor illusion: this isn't the first time Peter Jacobson has played someone with a medical background. Agony of the feet: Sky steps on a glass bottle and gets a huge piece of glass stuck in her foot. Ambiguous situation: it's not clear just how little of the movie actually happened. Though absolutely nothing from Sky being mobbed by illusions of the entity and waking up in a treatment facility to just before the final scene happened, much more is unclear in turn. Did she have a freak out in the middle of giving a speech? Did Morris even exist, or was he just a convenient way for the entity to explain what exactly was happening to Sky and give her a hope spot? The reveal that Gemma never reconciled with Sky occurred in this fantasy, and while there is some foreshadowing for this beforehand, the entity showing a repeated ability to mess with people's perceptions of their own phones mean that the message log itself may be an in-universe, meaning that even that foreshadowing is legitimately worthless to say either way. Ultimately, all that is moot if one takes it at the absolute most extreme possibility that virtually nothing after Lewis' suicide actually happened, thus, the reconciliatory phone call attempt never occurred in the first place if so. Also, the ending of the film falls into this category. There was no prior indication the entity could possess multiple people at once, and no confirmation that it had done so. Thus, it is possible that the entity merely wanted to be able to select its next victim from the largest possible pool. Furthermore, if it did infect multiple hosts, then does that mean the single entity is now possessing multiple people, or did it just reproduce itself into a significant number of clones that might vary in their tactics and attitudes somewhat? Were this a less cynical series, it might even be theoretically possible to get a token good orc out of the latter situation. It's unclear if Morris is even real. While the flashback to his brother's death suggests he still knows a lot about the entity and was able to track the chain from Joel to Lewis, which seems a bit too good to be true. This is further compounded by how, as mentioned above, it's implied that much of the film didn't actually happen. Skye and Paul's relationship. Was he a cruel, emotionally abusive asshole who she finally lashed out at once she was sufficiently uninhibited? Was she a toxic, miserable, unstable train wreck who he finally reached his breaking point with? Or was it a destructive romance with two people who never should have been together and brought out the worst in each other? The flashback to the crash answers very little. They were both extremely drunk and coked out of their minds, and spent the drive fighting bitterly, with Skye constantly egging Paul on and deliberately antagonizing him, and Paul berating her and repeatedly screaming that she was a fucking psycho. Even though she did cause the crash by grabbing the wheel, it's unclear whether it was a final act of rage against a history of abuse, an impulsive abusive act to scare him, or just a substance-addled whim that she didn't think about at all. Arc symbol, smiles, obviously. At one point, the scar on Skye's knee looks like a smile. Asshole victim, Joel attempts to pass the curse onto a drug dealer by killing his accomplice in front of him, and specifically sought the duo out because they killed a mother and her child. His plan hits a snag when the dealer shoots at him for killing his friend, and Joel ends up fatally shooting him in the process. Call back, as Joel walks into the drug dealer's house, he ignores a hallucination of Rose self-immolating. Can't get away with nothin', Skye probably could have avoided the curse if she hadn't snuck into Lewis's apartment to buy drugs. Casting gag, Ray Nicholson is definitely channeling some of his father Jack's creepiness from The Shining. Cheated death, died anyway, Joel. He successfully passes the curse onto another person, albeit, not the person he intended, after killing two drug dealers and is spared the entity's wrath. Unfortunately, as he's fleeing the scene of his crime, he's violently run over by a pickup truck. Creepy child, Skye signs a little girl's t-shirt, but it's an awkward exchange due to her smile. Cruel and unusual death, just like the first movie, the suicides in this film are quite brutal and graphic. This time around we see Lewis smashing his head in with a giant weight plate 3 times, a shot of Morris' brother tearing off his jaw with a crowbar, a vision of Elizabeth stabbing herself in the neck and eye with a shard of glass, and finally, Skye jamming a microphone through one of her eye sockets. Cruel twist ending, one that somehow manages to be even crueler than the first. After escaping from the hospital with help from Gemma, Skye meets up with Morris to kill the Smile entity, but it turns out that the whole episode is just another long, elaborate vision, and she is about to perform on stage when the Smile entity possesses her, and she kills herself in front of a massive audience. One can only surmise the horrific implications as to what comes next. Diabolus ex machina, Joel's death has absolutely nothing to do with the entity's curse. He manages to free himself of the demon's grasp, and while he's fleeing from a drug den, a truck comes out of nowhere and runs him over. We have no idea who was driving the truck, if it was a freak accident, if one of the drug dealers ran him over as payback for the 2 men he killed, or if the entity found a convoluted way to kill him because it's just sadistic like that. Didn't think this through, Joel uses what he has learned in the previous movie to put together a solid plan to get rid of the entity. He targets 2 criminals who escaped justice, specifically killing one in front of the other to pass it on the survivor, just as the convict in the previous film unwittingly did. While the first part of the plan goes on surprisingly well, what he failed to account for is that the second criminal would have likely reacted violently to the first one's death, forcing Joel to defend himself. Sure enough, a shootout ensues and the second criminal is fatally wounded, though he lucks out when another guy shows up to buy drugs and becomes a valid target. The plan itself is a case of this, although forgivable considering the huge stress and short time span constricting Joel. The curse can be passed by making someone else witness horrific acts of violence, meaning two violent criminals are very likely to pass the curse to someone else quickly enough. Joel would be free anyway, but the punishment aspect of the plan was likely to fall off anyway. Downer beginning. The movie takes place 6 days after Joel witnessed Rose's suicide, and it's clear he has little time left before the entity claims him. Desperate, Joel tries to pass on the curse to a drug dealer who murdered a woman and child. His plan goes horribly awry. Joel accidentally kills the man he was trying to pass the curse onto in front of Lewis, which passes the curse onto him instead, thus starting the chain of events for Sky later. Even worse, Joel ends up getting run over by a truck for his troubles. Dream within a dream, possibly the entire movie after Louis Fragali's death, except for the final scene, ends up being one lengthy illusion/hallucination that the entity created for Sky, which means that possibly all the nightmares and specific apparitions that Sky experiences and seemingly overcomes are this. Expository hairstyle change. Sky had long black hair before the crash and wears it in a blonde pixie cut in the present. It's because she tore out much of her hair while in recovery/withdrawal. Ice cream. Sky's final fate is the entity possessing her to bash her head with her microphone, until the final shot shows it having gone through her eye. Facial horror. Louis smashes his face with a barbell weight until his skin is peeling off and his jaw is visible. Faux shadow. Another unusual example. Something is off about Morris. From the moment it turns out the unknown number that was ominously texting Sky was apparently an ally. His plan to temporarily kill Sky and revive her to kill the entity is an entirely too good to be true hope spot. Nobody interacts with him besides Sky. He knows an awful lot about the entity, and he leads her to a very shady place and acts strangely when she finally agrees to go through with it. While it's certainly not made clear whether or not he actually existed, given that a massive proportion of the movie was a hallucination which may or may not have precluded his introduction, the one revealed, in an unclear way, to have been imaginary was Gemma. Finger-forced smile. When she looks in the mirror in her dressing room, Louis, bloody forehead and all, appears behind her in the reflection, forcing her lips into a huge smile. Foreshadowing. An unusual and rather convoluted subversion happens during the scenes when Sky is texting Gemma, sending her numerous distressed messages in different situations to which Gemma never replies, although these messages are sent by Sky after she and Gemma supposedly made amends and are best friends again, which might hint towards the twist how the Gemma that Sky made amends with and who later sporadically follows Sky is not real, but rather just another illusion by the entity, while the text messages and a later phone call with a cold and distant Gemma are real. However, while the former part is technically true, the latter conclusion about the text message's reliability, that was seemingly being foreshadowed, ends up being avoided in an even more dramatic fashion, since the real big plot twist at the end is that the vast majority of the movie was all just one big illusion by the entity, with almost all of those earlier moments when Sky seemingly connects the dots and becomes more proactive didn't even happen, which also includes the scene when, thanks to her phone, Sky seemingly realizes that Gemma driving the car is the entity while the real Gemma is calling her on the phone after not answering her messages for a long time. In reality, both of these Gemmas were just figments of a much more elaborate illusion by the entity, as were pretty much all the supposed hints towards what's real and what's an illusion. There are, however, some straight examples during the last sequence. The doctor saying that Sky is severely dehydrated despite her constantly drinking water through the movie tells us not to trust what we see and that the entity is able to conjure far more complex, subtle, and enduring scenario than anticipated. There are also several logical jumps and inconsistencies that cannot be explained by the entity's power, like Sky managing to free herself and overpower her mother without a struggle, suddenly learning how to drive and managing to do so for around a minute with her eyes closed, that hints at the fact that the whole scene is not real. There is one before that point, when the smiling fans appearing in Sky's house drag her down, and a bloody arm is shoved down her throat, not unlike how the final possession was revealed to take place in the first movie. Even if it's not the exact moment Sky gets possessed, the entity is in complete control after that point. Even the pictured poster is an example. There's a red crack running down her right eye, which alludes to where Sky fatally slams a microphone into her eye while possessed by the entity. Gory discretion shot. The end of the film does not show Sky jamming the microphone into her eye, instead focusing on the horrified reaction of the audience. Also qualifies as a sound-only death, up until we see the aftermath. Hair trigger temper. Sky is prone to explosive outbursts and repeatedly flies into destructive rages, and while plenty of it can be blamed on the toll of the entity's torment, it's very heavily implied that this is not a new tendency. Hope spot. The downer beginning and downer ending both have this to the fullest possible extent. Joel manages to successfully exploit the loophole of gruesomely killing someone in front of a witness, thereby freeing himself of the curse. However, he's confronted by more drug dealers as he attempts to flee and is then run over by a truck. Like Rose in the first film, Sky attempts to confront the entity by killing herself. There is a moment where it seems to work, only for the entity to then show that she's not holding the syringe. Then it's revealed that none of that is happening either. She's on stage in front of thousands of fans. Ludicrous Gibbs. When Joel gets hit by the truck in the trailer, there is a lot of blood and entrails on the road, plus his severed foot, and the direction of the swerving truck causes the blood to form into a smile. Meaningful name. Sky's drug dealer is named Louis Fergali. The Fergali delusion is when someone believes that multiple people are actually the same person in disguise, which, as shown in the first film, is the Smile entity's MO and fits Laura's description of it wearing people's faces like masks. Mirror monster. While looking in the mirror, Sky sees Louis looming behind her, but when she looks back, he's not there. Morton's fork. Almost all the obstacles and perils that Sky faces throughout the movie end up being less than inconsequential. They didn't even really happen but were instead just illusions created by the entity to torment her, and also waste precious time. Even small victories such as Sky seemingly being in control for brief moments do not count, as the apparitions that she seemingly overcame were just dream within a dream and none of that had any influence on reality, in which the entity was firmly controlling Sky until the very end. Newscaster cameo. Sky's first appearance is an interview on Drew Barrymore's talk show. Not quite saved enough, Joel does manage to pass on the smile curse in the opening scene, only to end up run over minutes later. It doesn't even seem to be related to the curse in any particularly clear way. Oh, crap, besides the entire film being one long chain of these, the worst one comes at the end when Sky realizes that nothing she had been seeing with Morris or the abandoned Pizza Hut was real. She's actually on stage, about to perform in front of thousands of fans, and the entity is ready to claim her. The Oneer. The entire opening sequence with Joel is one shot. Pay evil unto evil. Joel attempts this by trying to pass the curse on to a drug dealer who murdered a woman and her child. Unfortunately for him, the drug dealer is shot and bleeds to death, and the relatively innocent Louis happened to be standing there the entire time and saw the whole thing. Product placement. Sky is constantly drinking Voss water throughout the film. Psychic-assisted suicide. As per the understanding of the Smile entity, Louis' 7 days are up and he tries to get Sky to help him in the trailer, unwillingly passing the curse onto her when he kills himself. Recycled with a gimmick. The plot more or less follows the structure of the first one beat for beat, with the main differences being exploring what it would be like if the entity possessed a pop star and, ultimately, that some unclear but even more significant amount of the film was a hallucination, though in any case still an escalation of the first's third act hope spot. Rule of symbolism. In a fridge brilliance serial escalation of the previous movie, resulting from Sky being a contrasting sequel main character compared to Rose. Sky is revealed to have been trapped so thoroughly in a hallucination it's hard to tell when it even began. Rose from the last movie was trapped in several herself but it was discernible when they started and ended. Rose's trauma, which the Smile entity represents/feeds on, is due to a singular moment in her life whilst the rest of it was built around being a respectable psychiatrist to try and move on. Sky's life is that of a pop singer, something which brings her a great deal of stress and unhappiness she cannot escape from, given that it is her whole purpose, and her own traumatic event, as well as being a drug addict only made it worse. Rose's one case of trauma presented several hallucinations whilst Sky's life of it led to ones which may have always been in effect. Slasher Smile, A Given, being the sequel to Smile, 2022. Lewis kills himself while giving off a malicious smile, latching the curse onto Sky as she begins to see others with that same smile. Stage Mom, Sky's mother Elizabeth is also her manager. While it is ambiguous how much is real and not the entity's influence, it is implied that she is pushing for her daughter to be in show business in order to benefit herself. Sudden Sequel Death Syndrome, a relatively unsurprising case. Joel gets run over by a truck at the beginning, but witnessing the death of one of the cursed was already known to be how it passes on in the first time, so him dying was pretty much guaranteed. What wasn't guaranteed was him successfully passing on the curse, only to die mere minutes later regardless. Surprisingly realistic outcome, Sky was involved in a near-fatal car accident that grievously injured her, and the movie does not gloss over the lasting effects. She has severe PTSD, which is very clearly exacerbating her other mental health issues. Her scars are large and numerous enough that even the best wound care can't reduce their visibility, and she's in constant pain and repeatedly experiences complications from her injuries. Additionally, despite being in chronic pain, her history of substance abuse has red-flagged her medical records, and she is unable to find a doctor who will prescribe her anything stronger than Tylenol, especially since she's a celebrity and no doctor wants to be the one who writes her a prescription that makes her relapse and gets dragged into the spotlight if she goes back to rehab or dies. It's not even remotely a surprise that she chooses to go back to her plug for black market opioids. Time skip. The film opens 6 days after Rose killed herself and then picks up within a week afterwards. Trailers always spoil. The teaser trailer quite clearly shows a wounded Joel running out into the middle of the street before getting pulverized by a truck. What's even more irritating is that this is the first scene in the movie. Understatement, Lewis tells Sky that he's having the worst week ever. If the first film is anything to go by, the entity has not been kind to him. Vomit indiscretion shot, Sky pukes on screen after watching Lewis kill himself. Would hurt a child. There are several young girls and teenagers in the audience when Sky kills herself. While it's unclear whether the entity can possess multiple people at once, they have all been inflicted with horrific psychological trauma at seeing one of their beloved singers die so gruesomely on stage. Joel specifically picked his victims because they had killed a girl. Your mind makes it real, invoked by Sky to deal with the false Gemma. It's revealed to be subverted in the end, though, since Sky was already trapped in an illusion anyway and only allowed to believe it to torment her more, with the entity even throwing back her words at her mockingly. Knocked out, love will be the death of me. Previous. Index. Next. Smile, 2022. Media Notes / Restricted Rating Film Series. Smokin' Aces. Smile, 2022. Psychological Horror. Spiral, 2007. Smile, 2022. Creator / Paramount. The Smiling Lieutenant. Smile, 2022. Horror film / M to Z. Smiley. Smile, 2022. Demon Works. Stitches, 2001. Slate in Flame. Music Stories. A Song is Born. Smile, 2022. Films of the 2020s. Sonic the Hedgehog, film series. Smile, 2022. Monster Media. Society. Show spoilers. Night Vision. Sticky Header. Wide Load. Important links. Ask the Tropers, Trope Finder, Media Finder, Trope Launchpad, Tech Wishlist Reviews. Go ad free. Crucial browsing. Indexes. Genre. Action Adventure. Comedy. Commercials. Crime and Punishment. Drama. Horror. Love. News. Professional Wrestling. Speculative Fiction. Sports story. War. Media. All media. Animation, Western. Anime. Comic book. Fan fics. Film. Game. Literature. Music and sound effects. New media. Print media. Radio. Sequential art. Tabletop games. Television. Theater. Video game. Webcomics. Narrative. Universal. Applied phlebotinum. Characterization. Characters. Characters as device. Dialogue. Motifs. Narrative devices. Paratext. Plots. Settings. Spectacle. Other categories. British Telly. The contributors. Creator speak. Creators. Derivative works. Language. Laws and formulas. Show business. Split personality. Stockroom. Trope. Tropes. Truth and lies. Truth in television. Topical tropes. Betrayal. Censorship. Combat. Death. Family. Fate and prophecy. Food. Holiday. Memory. Money. Morality. Politics. Religion. School. Resources. Tools. Wiki tools. Cut list. Image fixer. New edits. New articles. Edit reasons. Isolated pages. Launches. Images list. Recent videos. Crowner activity. Untyped pages. Recent page type changes. Templates. Trope entry. Works. Character sheet. Playing with. Fandom. Tips. Creating new reader recs. Cross-wicking. Tips for editing. Text formatting rules. Glossary. Edit reasons. Handling spoilers. Wordcraft. Administrivia. FAQ. Changelog. Report bug. Trope repair shop. Image pickin. Advertisement. Advertisement. Top. Edit page. Related. History. Ad review. Discussion more. To do. Page source. TV tropes. About TV tropes. TV tropes goals. Troping code. TV tropes customs. Tropes of legend. Go ad free. Community. Ask the tropers. Trope launchpad. Trope finder. Media finder. Tech wish list. Reviews. Forum. Tropes HQ. About us. Contact us. Report bug. Changelog. DMCA notice. Privacy policy. Switch to desktop mobile version. TV Tropes is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike 3.0 Unported license. Permissions beyond the scope of this license may be available from Thesta FF at tvtropes.org.